Alright, you guys. This is another email, my second one, from my friend in central Minnesota. And so this is it. Sent from my iPhone on November 6th, 2021. It was opener of deer season when I had my second encounter with Bigfoot. I have hunted out of this deer stand for 40 years and nothing happened at all. Nothing happened all of those years until this deer season. I was in my deer stand in the evening of November 6th, and I only had about 30 minutes before it was too dark to shoot, when deer about 200 yards away started blowing and blowing. This deer blew 25 times and never moved. During this time, it was blowing. So after the deer blew 25 times, I was watching for another deer, bear, wolf, or anything that had startled the deer. 10 minutes passed and I did not see anything. As darkness settled in, I saw something 60 yards away by the side of an oak tree. This area where I saw this animal was open, no brush in my view or anything else. The grass was only an inch long, so when I picked up my gun to check it out, I was not sure what I was seeing. So I put the gun down and grabbed my binoculars and saw the same thing. It was a young Bigfoot crouching down alongside a big oak tree eating. I was shocked. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I watched this young Bigfoot eating with my gun and binoculars. I thought I might be seeing something that is not there. But no matter what I did, it was really happening. So after about 10 minutes of watching it at 60 yards with my gun, must have had a scope on there, the scope was a 10 power, so I could get a good look at it. What I was seeing really blew my mind. I know what I am looking at, but trying to process it. Not only a young Bigfoot crouching down eating on the ground by an oak tree. This Bigfoot was broadside to me, but I could only see his head and shoulders and arms. As I watched him eat with his hands, I noticed his hands were large for his size, because I would guess that he was about 5 feet tall if he were to stand up. His arms were extremely long as I watched him eat. I noticed that I only could see his body from his shoulders forward. I could not see the rest of his body where he was in the open. There was nothing in the way that would block my view, but I still could only see the front half of his body as he ate off the ground. I couldn't figure out where the back half of his body was. It was not there. It was like he was cut off from the rest of his body. By now it's getting dark. As I watched him, I noticed that when he leaned forward to grab some food that was further away, I could see more of his body. But as he ate closer to his body, I would see less of his body.
A new important message has arrived. Attention.
His shoulders, arms, hands, and his head was visible with black hair. His face I had a really good look at because he turned his head my direction. Then I noticed his face had no hair and was a pale gray color of skin. This was very different color, nothing I had ever seen before. I still had my gun watching him through my scope. I know I could have shot him at any time, but I never put my gun on fire. Because during this time watching him, I felt that I had no right to shoot him because he was not threatening me in any way. So I put my gun down, grabbed my binoculars, trying to figure out why I can't see the back part of his body. After watching the back part of his body with my binoculars for 5 minutes, I could see very faint outline his back half. His back half was totally different in color than his front half. I'm not sure on how to explain this, but it was almost like a cartoon or a kid's show when they would drink a magic drink and disappear, but you still could see the outline of their body. That's what I was seeing. The back half of his body was fading in and out as I watched him eat. I could make out the outline of his back half, and then it would disappear and reappear. I figured it out after watching closely to what was going on. He was in a portal. I couldn't see the portal, but as he leaned forward and backwards, I would see more and less of his body. Without any doubt, he was definitely in a portal. This was a lot to take in. All of this took place in about 20 minutes. At this point, I wasn't too sure about getting out of my deer stand, so I called my brother at the house and told him what I saw. His response was a little laughter and said, "Yeah, right, I know you're joking around." I said, "No, this all happened, and I am still watching him now as we're talking." Then he started to believe me on what I all said. So I stayed in the deer stand talking to him as he drove out with his four-wheeler. By this time it was dark. I could still see the young Bigfoot eating by the tree because of the moonlight. When my brother was 100 yards away, he said, "Can you still see him?" I said, "Yes, I can." My brother said to shine my flashlight on him, so I did. As soon as the light hit him, he was gone. He did not run away, he just vanished into thin air. Since he was gone, I got out of my tree stand and met my brother by the tree where the Bigfoot was. So we looked around the tree to see what he was eating. It turned out that he was eating a dried up cow pie. He had turned it over and was picking it apart and eating it. We did not see anything more after looking for 15 minutes, so we went back to the house. Once we were back to the house, I found out that my sister was outside during this time, standing 40 yards from the house during the time my brother and I were looking by the tree where the Bigfoot was. My sister said that she saw a white light about the size of a softball. She said it came from my deer stand area about the time I shined the light on it. My sister thought that I was coming across a hayfield with my flashlight at a fast pace. Once this light passed in front of her at 20 feet, then she knew it wasn't me with the flashlight. So she screamed and took off running into the house. Wow, a lot of orb stories surrounding these Sasquatch sightings. So this light orb might have been the young Bigfoot I saw and disappear into an orb when I shined the flashlight on it. Or it could have been something else, I don't know for sure. But everything that I saw that evening from my deer stand, I know what I saw and watched it unfold in front of me. So whoever listens to this event I had with Bigfoot or happens to read it, and if you have a hard time taking all this in because it's so far all out there on what all happened, I feel the same way you do, and I saw it happen. So if someone tells you a story about a Bigfoot they saw, all I can say is to believe them no matter how bizarre it gets. All right, brother, that was great email. Wow, thank you. That's going to open up some doors and turn on some lights for some people. And I know there's some people out there that are going to go, wow, I had the same thing happen. There's hundreds of stories out there similar to this, I wouldn't doubt. Or at least having to do with an orb after having a Bigfoot sighting. And seeing one coming in and out of a portal. I've listened to many stories about that, and the list just goes on, man. These portals, man, I tell you what, there was a Native American person on Steve's channel that said something about the Sasquatch or the Sabe. When they're young, they leave with the star people for a little while. I wouldn't doubt that they are learning from them about how to use portals, how to generate them, how to turn into an orb of light. They might know all this stuff already. Who knows? Who knows? I bet the government knows. The government knows all about them. They've, like I said before in my other videos, they've got unlimited resources when it comes to researching a mystery. And I'm sure they've found somebody or some bodies that could communicate with the Sabe or the forest people or the Sasquatch or the Bigfoot or the Yowie or the skunk ape or the grass man. The list goes on for names. They have different names for them all over the country and all over the world. But yeah, the government, they found out a way to communicate with them, and they have all the answers. And it's such a far out, strange mystery, mind-blowing truths, that they don't want to share that truth because they don't want to scare anybody. They don't want to whatever. Ever since War of the Worlds radio broadcast, what was that, back in the 40s, later 40s, and people were jumping off of roofs and all kinds of crazy shit. We are a little more evolved now, and I think we can handle the truth, and we're ready for the truth. This generation deserves to know the truth. Otherwise people are going to be going out to enjoy the outdoors and getting the crap scared out of them, wetting themselves, literally the crap scared out of them. I know if I saw one and had a face-to-face encounter, I'd probably shit my pants, man. I know I would. And then curl up into a ball and start crying. There's people who've had ongoing encounters and relationships with these things, and they still feel intimidated. So, yeah. So anyway, the government knows all about it. It's just a matter of time. We get enough people telling their truth. There's thousands and thousands already. I want to see millions. I want to see each and every person who's ever saw or had an encounter with a Sabe, forest people, Sasquatch, Bigfoot, blah, 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 blah. I want every single person that's ever happened to to send an email to somebody, whether it's me or Steve or Wes or anybody. I don't care who it is. Tell your story. You got to get it out there. You got to get it off your chest. If your family and friends are ridiculing you and teasing you and telling you you're a liar, fuck them. You don't want to deal with them. Tell somebody who wants to hear and who knows that these things exist. So, here we are. We're here for you, guys. Good gals, children, kids have seen these things. Kids have played with juvenile Sasquatch when they were younger, and they just thought it was the neighbor kid, the strange neighbor kid. I recall a story like that, and so that's what we're here for, you guys. Share your story. Minnesota Sasquatch Trucker at gmail.com, and all one word, Minnesota Sasquatch Trucker, and my YouTube channel, which you probably already are watching, Minnesota Sasquatch Trucker on YouTube. And speaking of trucker, where'd you go? Where are you, baby girl? Trucker. Oh, she's napping. I just had her out in a cornfield behind me. I'm at a pilot in the middle of Ohio, actually, Grassman country. This is a farming country here. There's not a whole lot of woods, just little patches. And I wouldn't doubt it one bit that there's a few living in some of these patches of trees and forests, because they're out in the middle of nowhere, out in the middle of a field that who's going to walk a quarter mile across a cornfield into a patch of woods? Sure, there are probably some deer hunters out here that sit in those, but that's just for a short period. They probably just disappear, or they go to another patch of woods, or they sit there in the trees hiding from them and watch them sit on their stupid deer stand all day and throw rocks at them and hoot and howl. I'm sure there's deer hunters out there that have heard screams in the woods, and they're like, oh, it's a cougar, a panther, whatever, a skunk, a squirrel. Some of these skeptics, man, they'll come up with some good ones that just do not hold water, do not make sense, but yet they convince themselves to believe their own bullshit. And that's another thing. Skeptics, kiss my ass, man. I can't wait to do my I told you so dance. I can't wait. And I can't wait for you fuckers who think you're so goddamn smart. Oh, I got a PhD in whatever. And don't even entertain the idea that it's a possibility that these things could exist. There's a couple that come to mind that I just want to reach through the screen and grab them by the throat and just say, what the hell's wrong with you, man? God, it's just such pitiful excuses that they come up with, man. So just quit it, you assholes. You're making idiots out of yourself, and I'm sure your family is embarrassed of you. They just agree with you because they don't want to argue with you. Your kids have probably got more common sense than you do, Mr. Skeptic, Mrs. Skeptic. And then all you guys on TV howling in the woods, knocking on trees and shit. How many years have you been doing that? Have you actually had a Sasquatch come up and say hi? Or have you actually had one on film? Or have you gotten us Any answers? I mean, we're feeding your asses. You're the ones making all the money off these stupid shows. Come on, do something. You're a bunch of ass jacks, man. Yeah. It just makes me want to tear my hair out, but I'm starting to get a little light on top, so I'm not going to do that. Okay, I get so wound up when I talk about these idiots and this shit because it's just so much in your face. All these stories of thousands and thousands of people. They're not making this stuff up. And like I said before in another video, like that friend of mine, she saw the orange glowing eyes in the woods the size of tennis balls, and she heard the gibberish in the woods. You know how many stories are out there? The same thing, and she never even knew anything about Sasquatch, never listened to any Sasquatch stories, maybe saw a show or two, hoping to find Bigfoot or whatever the hell it's called, and or never finding Bigfoot, that's what we'll call it. And but yeah, she, when I told her what it was, she was just like, oh my God, you're right. And I went out there in that area too, and I saw a couple very peculiar looking square structures with the fork of this tree over the trunk of this one, and then the fork of this one over the trunk of this one, and then there was two birch trees with a log that was brought in, and it was jammed down in an angle, dropped down in there, and you could see the rub marks on both sides of the trees, and it was just like 6 inches deep rub mark. It just jammed in there, and then that was through the fork of the other tree. So it's like all the forks were over the trunk of the other tree, and it was a big rectangle. It was what it was. Probably 20 foot by 6 foot, 8 foot wide. It was almost like they were mimicking building a house or something. And I've got 2 pictures of teepee structures, and then the friend of mine that I just read the email of, he sent me 2 pictures from his property of teepee structures. And you put all 4 pictures together, and it looks like the same homeless person built them. That's what Sasquatch are. They're homeless, right? They're just not out standing on a median somewhere in ripped up jeans hoping you'll give them all your change. But just think if we domesticated them, they might start doing that. We better be careful. But anyway, the teepee structures, man, it was just like when I showed him the 2 that I sent him, and then he found them 2 out on his property, and he's like, oh my God, they look like they're the same thing, and they're really, really similar, but they're not. They're totally different structures, the same but different. They were built by somebody with the same mentality or the same goal in mind. But you know, some of these X's and like the upside down trees with the roots sticking in the air, I think those are markers for their young ones. They could be markers for the young ones to say, go out and play, but don't go past my markers. That's what I'm thinking. Or, you know, it could be a territorial thing, but I think they're more social than that. They don't have to mark their territories. But I think it's for the young ones, to keep the young ones within the boundary. And, you know, if you go past the boundary, you'll get in trouble. So I think that's a very possible thing going on there. So, anyway, welcome to my truck. I haven't been home in like 2 months. I've been driving every day, all day, for 2 months straight. I need a break. I'm getting a new engine put in my Camaro SS, 11 grand, brand new engine from Chevy. Should be done in a week or two. And then I'm going to take like 3 or 4 days off and I'm going to go drive it. I love my car. I love driving that son of a bitch. I put on 200,000 miles in like 5 years. I drove the piss out of the thing. I drove the piss out of it for 2 solid days, 2 years in a row at Brandon International Raceway at BIR. They charge you $350 and you got used to the track all day and you just beat the shit out of it. I had her up to 130 on the straightaway. Then I'd take it to Wednesday night drags, do burnouts at the starting line. My best time was 105 in the quarter mile. So yeah, just to the floor, going, man, just going, pushing that baby as hard as you can. But yeah, that track day, man, I'll tell you what, that kicks your ass. You take your helmet off and you're completely soaking wet. You're sweaty. I was sore. My shoulders, my arms, and my back a little bit was sore from cranking on that steering wheel coming into those turns and stuff. But it's just, I got a whole new appreciation for race car drivers. But it kicked my ass. Both times I did it, man, it's like you got to go to the gym for a year before you go race a car because it smokes you. But it's worth it, man. The pain was awesome. So if you ever get a hot rod, man, if you're around Minnesota, well, other tracks do it too all over the country, I'm sure.